In class, we talked about our own experiences of discrimination, um, whether we ourselves belong to social groups that are discriminated against, and whether we see discrimination happening to others. Um, how is this discrimination justified and rationalized in order for it to be legitimate? And is this legitimacy contested? Does it have socio-cultural or historical roots or religious roots? And what purpose does this discrimination serve for society? And discrimination does serve a purpose for society, even though it has usually deleterious effects for those being discriminated against. They can be imprisoned and excluded and shamed. This is what Berger and Luckman called the defining of deviance and what we do with our deviance. It serves to set up norms. You don't murder people, you don't do this, you don't do that. But then we get the less useful ones, like you shouldn't, white is better, or you shouldn't be gay, or men are superior to women, or all these other discriminatory assumptions or narratives that are legitimized in different ways. And yet, are they still serving us, or are they actually legitimate, and who's fighting against them? So Foucault would call this a tool of discipline in terms of subjectification. So how do you control a person to be self controlling, to fit in with all these, not being a deviant? I rather liked this quote, so I thought I would share it with you. Let us unite, not in spite of our differences, but through them. For differences can never be wiped away, and life would be so poorer without them. Let all human races keep their own personalities, and yet come together, not in uniformity that is ideas, but in a unity that is living. So we can all have our own ideas and ways of being, but we can still live together, united. I read a very interesting article a few years ago that talked about when you ask a person, let's say a person migrates from one country to another, if you ask them to give up their culture and take on a new culture, it's extremely difficult for them and it doesn't usually work. But if you ask them to keep their culture and adopt yours, that is much more effective because it makes them feel welcome and included, without saying that you have to give up part of your identity. It makes total sense. And we're all quite capable of having multiple identities. Anyway, I think the author was Fiol, F-I-O-L. Very interesting article. Gregory Bateson in 1935 wrote a theoretical argument about what he called schismogenesis. And he was writing from Europe in between the two world wars. So things were pretty dodgy. And there was also a lot of colonialism happening at that time, Africa being taken over by various different European countries. So he was positing this idea that if you have two subcultures living together in the same society, you've got three options that could happen. One is that they would integrate, like become one homogenous culture, which he thought that's never going to happen. And one is that they would mix together. And the other was that one would completely dominate the other one. The mixed together one is the one that he ended up on, multiculturalism. The completely dominate one is not, out of the question. You could say in many colonial situations there was a lot of domination, to the point of genocide, wiping out the original inhabitants. But what I want to focus on here is not that very sad outcome, but the idea of when two disparate cultures are living together. So what he says is that there are weak forces that make the society work. Things like reciprocity and trust, mutual dependence, external threats on the society, and cooperative leaders, responsible cooperative leaders. But he believed that they were quite weak connectors, and that he thought that eventually the society would break down through what he called progressive differentiation and hostility, or schismogenesis. We can see schismogenesis happening in the world, I think, between the left and the right of politics. Uh, it's so extreme at the moment. And I wrote my thesis on schism, so it doesn't just happen in whole societies, it happens in small groups as well. Anyway, I thought I would leave you with that one just for fun.